So many people confuse self-love with pleasure. And they think that when they feel pleasure, that's love. No, that the more whole you feel, the less need for pleasure you'll have. The less whole you feel, the more you're attached to things that are going to stimulate you and create pleasure. So then how is self-love born? You have to come up against the end of your emotional belief. You have to come to the very point where you don't think you can go any further, that you've reached the end and you don't believe that there's anything beyond that. And then you have to step out a little further and go a little further than where you thought you could go. Every time you do that, something awakens in you. You have more respect for yourself. You have more respect for life. You have more respect for others because you realize that change isn't that easy. You start to feel this kind of sense of peace and compassion because you've come up against your own limits and you're stretching yourself beyond those limits. So then when you finally free yourself from the chains of those emotions and those habits that keep you anchored to the past, there's a liberation of energy. And that liberation of energy is the body going from particle to wave, from matter to energy. And that energy that's being released, the body starts to feel what we call joy or love or freedom. And that is what I call the natural state of being. So you're not getting that joy or that freedom or that love from anything outside of you. There's nothing out there that's creating it. It's happening from within you. So then we see then in our research, when people really start to cross that river of change and start to break through, and they begin to activate certain latent systems in their brain, and those latent systems start signaling oxytocin. Oxytocin, the love chemical. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical that causes your heart and lungs to swell. Your heart literally is engorging with energy and blood, and it's literally swelling, and this center now is activated. So then, when you feel that, you're not going to want to lose that feeling. In fact, if you start judging another person, if you start getting impatient with another person, you'll notice that feeling will go away. You start analyzing yourself, that feeling will go away. So then, it makes sense then that when you feel that level of wholeness, that you feel so whole that you wouldn't want to lose the feeling, then self-love leads to allowing, which means I'm just going to allow you because I'm so in love with myself, I can allow you. When I'm not in love with me, I'm going to pick you apart. But the more in love I am with myself, the more love and appreciation I have for all things. I am no longer in the same energy as my enemy, the same energy as my coworker that I despise. I'm in a different energy. And then the side effect of allowing is called joy. So then if you're not judging or criticizing, then you're not dividing your energy. And if you're not dividing your energy, you're going to feel joy as a side effect. So then more and more people start to figure this out. In other words, if you spend 2 hours in a meditation, getting beyond your fear or your anger or your pain or your suffering, it took you 2 hours to get beyond it, and you feel the liberation of you getting beyond those limited states, I guarantee you would be walking around in your life celebrating because that divine intelligence that's living in you, that's giving you life, is now expressing itself through you to a greater measure. So then you're in love with life because you're connected to life. And imagine how far you can go with this, because the more you connect to that field and the more you connect to that life essence, the more you're going to feel in love with life because that's where your attention is. I guarantee you that if you did that every single day, you would be less likely to want to feel fear or pain or suffering or anger, and more likely to want to feel those elevated states. And you're not going to be relying on anybody to make you happy. You're going to realize that happiness comes from within.